The letter smells like home. That's the first thing I notice. Before I even break the seal, the scent of pine and wet earth and something older, something that lives in blood memory instead of thought. My hands go still on the kitchen counter. 9 years of forgetting, and my body still remembers exactly what pack parchment smells like. I should burn it. I know that before I even open it. Rogues who get summoned and ignore the summons don't usually stay unfound for long, but I've stayed hidden this long by trusting my instincts, and every instinct I have is screaming at me to strike a match and walk away from the life this letter is about to end. I open it anyway. The words are simple. Formal. Final. By order of the Alpha King, all rogues within Eastern Territory are summoned for registration and protection. Attendance is not optional. Not optional. I almost laugh. Nothing about my life has been optional since the night I was 18 years old, standing in the middle of my pack hall, and the boy I loved looked me in the eye and told an entire room full of wolves that he didn't want me. I built something after that. Small, quiet, human. A studio apartment with a lock that actually keeps people out. A bartending job where nobody asks where you're really from. 9 years of making myself forgettable on purpose, because forgettable is safe, and safe was the only thing I let myself want. My name is Ava, and until tonight, I thought I'd finally disappeared for good. I fold the letter, and my fingers are shaking, and I hate that they're shaking, because it means some part of me already knows I'm not going to burn it. I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to drive toward the one thing I swore I'd never go near again. Because rogues don't get to say no. Chapter 1: The Summons. The bar smells like spilled beer and cheap perfume, and for the first time in 9 years, I'm grateful for it. Human smells. Ordinary smells. Nothing underneath them, nothing hiding, nothing that could give me away. I wipe down the counter for the 3rd time in 10 minutes, not because it's dirty, but because my hands need something to do that isn't shaking. 3 more hours. 3 more hours and I close up, walk the 6 blocks home, lock my door, and pretend tonight was just another Tuesday. You okay, Ava? Marcus asks, sliding an empty glass across the bar toward me. He's been asking that question a lot this week. I've been giving him the same lie every time. Just tired, I say, and force a smile that doesn't reach anywhere close to my eyes. He doesn't push. Nobody here ever pushes. That's the whole reason I picked this bar, this city, this life. Nobody asks where you came from if you never give them a reason to wonder. I finish my shift. I walk home under streetlights that hum instead of howl. My apartment is small and plain and mine, 1 bag's worth of belongings if I ever needed to run again, because some part of me never stopped believing I would. That part of me was right. The letter is waiting on my doorstep when I get home, and I know before I even touch it that something has changed. It isn't paper. Not really. It's parchment, thick and pale, folded and sealed with wax the color of dried blood. And it smells like pine trees after rain, like wet earth, like a version of home I buried a long time ago. My hands go still. 9 years since I've caught a scent like this. 9 years of telling myself I'd forgotten what pack magic smells like. I was lying to myself then too. I don't touch it right away. I stand in my doorway staring at it like it might bite, because in a way, it can. This kind of letter can't be faked. Can't be forged by some rogue with a grudge or a human who found the wrong book at the wrong flea market. This is real. This is a summons, sent marked by an alpha's own blood, and every wolf who's ever heard the old stories knows exactly what that means. Rogues don't get to say no. I pick it up anyway, because refusing to touch it won't make it disappear. The words inside are simple. Formal. Final. By order of the Alpha King, all rogues within Eastern Territory are ordered to appear for registration. Attendance is not optional. Failure to comply will be treated as a threat to pack law. Not optional. I almost laugh, and it comes out broken instead, more like a sob than anything else. Nothing about my life has felt optional since I was 18 years old, standing in the middle of a pack hall full of wolves, watching the boy I loved turn his back on me in front of everyone I'd ever known. I don't let myself finish that memory. I never do. 9 years of practice, and I still can't survive it in full. I sit on the edge of my bed and I look around at the life I built here. Small. Quiet. Forgettable on purpose. A studio apartment with a lock that actually keeps people out. A job where nobody asks where I'm really from. No mate, no pack, no ties to anything that could be taken from me twice. I thought forgettable was the same thing as safe. I pack one bag. I don't let myself think too hard about what that means, that some part of me has been ready to run again for 9 straight years, bag half-packed in the back of my closet like a habit I never broke. By midnight I'm in my car, driving east, toward the one place I swore I'd never go near again. My hands shake on the wheel the entire way. I tell myself it's fear. I tell myself it's dread. I don't let myself consider that it might be something else. The gates appear just before dawn, tall and iron and unmistakably built to keep things in as much as to keep things out. I slow the car, and that's when it hits me, a scent that cuts straight through 9 years of walls before my mind even has time to catch up. It isn't the pack. It isn't the territory, or the history, or the ghosts I came here braced to face. It's one wolf. And every single cell in my body reacts to it like it's been waiting 9 years just for this. Chapter 2: The Alpha King. The doors open before I'm ready for them to. I'm not sure I would have ever been ready. The room on the other side isn't a pack hall the way I remember one. There's no rough-hewn wood, no simple wooden benches, no smell of wood smoke and old stone. This is something else entirely: marble floors that catch the light, chandeliers dripping gold overhead, wolves dressed like they stepped out of the pages of a magazine instead of out of the woods. Wealth wrapped around power, and power wrapped around every single person watching me walk in. I keep my chin up. I learned a long time ago that showing fear in a room like this is the same as handing someone a weapon. They're all watching me. Rogue, the whisper moves through the crowd before I've taken 10 steps, rogue, and I feel the word land against my skin like something dirty. 9 years of hiding, and one letter undid all of it in a single night. Then I see him. I don't know how else to describe what happens except that the entire room disappears. He's seated at the front, but seated is the wrong word for how he holds himself. More like a throne beneath him could be optional and he'd still command the space the same way. Black hair, sharp jaw, a build carved for command and something far more dangerous. His eyes lift, find mine across the distance, and the second they do, the air goes out of my lungs like I've been struck, mate. The word doesn't come from my mind. It comes from somewhere older, somewhere I stopped trusting 9 years ago, and my whole body responds before I can stop it, warmth flooding through me, my wolf surging toward the front of my skin like she's been waiting her entire life for exactly this moment. I hate her a little for it. Because I know what happens next. I've lived this before. I know exactly how this story goes: the recognition, the crowd, the moment where everyone waits to see the bond confirmed, and then the moment right after, when it's ripped away in front of all of them anyway. I'm not doing that again. He rises from his seat, slow, deliberate, and the whole room shifts with him like he's the gravity holding it together. You feel it, he says, low enough that it's almost private, except nothing in this room is private, and everyone hears it anyway. I feel nothing, I say, and my voice comes out steadier than I feel, steady enough that a ripple of shock moves through the crowd around us. His eyes narrow, just slightly, like I've said something in a language he doesn't recognize. You're lying. I'm leaving, I say instead, because it's easier than admitting he's right. The room goes utterly silent. I can feel the disbelief radiating off every wolf around us, the sheer impossibility of what I've just done. Nobody refuses an alpha king. Nobody, especially not his own true mate, standing in front of his entire court. I don't care. I turn on my heel, and I make it exactly 3 steps toward the door before his voice stops me cold. Ava. I freeze. I never gave anyone here my name. Chapter 3: Old Wounds. My name in his mouth feels like a hand closing around my throat. I turn back slowly, and every wolf in that room is staring at me like I've just grown a second head. Nobody speaks. Nobody breathes too loud. I've never felt so exposed in my entire life, and I spent 9 years building a life specifically so I'd never have to feel this way again. How do you know my name? My voice comes out sharper than I mean it to, but I don't take it back. Braiden doesn't answer right away. Instead, he says something to the room, low and final, and I watch the crowd part and disperse like water pulled by a tide, wolves filing out through side doors until it's just the two of us and a handful of guards standing near the walls, close enough to intervene, far enough to pretend they aren't listening. "Walk with me," he says. It isn't a request. I don't move. Something in his expression shifts, just barely, like he's recalibrating a plan that isn't going the way he expected. "Please," he adds, and the word sounds foreign coming from him, like he doesn't use it often. I follow him because staying in that room alone isn't an option, and because some traitorous part of me wants to hear what he has to say. We walk down a hallway lined with portraits of wolves I don't recognize, generations of a bloodline that never had to run from anything. "You weren't summoned randomly," he says finally. "I requested you by name." My stomach drops. Why? Because for the last several months, we've had confirmed reports of butcher activity across Eastern Territory. Rogues going missing. Some found dead. He glances at me, gauging my reaction. Every wolf with an unusual bloodline is being brought in for protection. Protection. I nearly laugh, and it isn't a kind sound. I've heard that word before. From who? I don't answer. I'm not ready to hand him that piece of me, not when I don't even know what he plans to do with the rest of it. We stop in front of a set of tall windows overlooking the estate grounds, moonlight spilling across the floor between us. 9 years ago, I say instead, staring out at the dark, I stood in a hall just like the one back there. My mate looked me in the eye in front of my entire pack and told them he didn't want me. Everyone I'd ever known watched him do it. Nobody said a word in my defense. Saying it out loud feels like tearing something open that never fully healed. Braiden goes very still beside me. That wasn't a true rejection. It felt real enough. I don't doubt that it did. His voice is quieter now, careful in a way I didn't expect from a man who commands rooms just by entering them. "But I know something about mate bonds you clearly don't, if you think what happened to you was ever really about you." I don't ask him what he means. I'm not ready for that answer either. "You're staying," he says, and it isn't cruelty in his voice, just certainty. "Not because I'm ordering you to. Because leaving isn't actually a choice anymore. Not with what's hunting rogues like you." He's right, and I hate that he's right. I don't have anywhere else to run that would actually be safe, not anymore, not if what he's saying about the butcher is true. "Fine," I say. "But I'm not doing anything else you ask just because you're used to people obeying you." Something almost like amusement flickers across his face. "Understood." He has guards show me to a wing of rooms, far nicer than anything I've lived in for 9 years, all soft lighting and warm colors meant to feel safe. "For your security," one of the guards tells me, like that phrase has ever meant anything good in my life. I wait until they're gone before I let myself breathe. There's a desk near the window, and on it, a folder left carelessly open, like whoever last used this room didn't expect anyone else to walk in. I shouldn't look. I know I shouldn't look. I look anyway. My name is on the tab. Inside, there are photographs. My apartment building. My bar, taken from across the street. A grainy shot of me locking my front door, time-stamped over a year ago. Someone has been watching me long before that letter ever found my doorstep. Chapter 4 Watched. I don't remember deciding to leave the room. I just remember moving, folder still in my hand, feet carrying me down the hallway with a kind of fury I haven't let myself feel in years. I find him in a study 2 floors down, like some part of me already knew exactly where he'd be. He looks up when I slam the folder onto his desk, and for half a second, I see something flicker across his face that might almost be guilt. Almost. "You had someone watching me." My voice shakes, but not from fear this time. "For over a year." Yes. No hesitation. No excuse dressed up as an apology. "Yes." I repeat, disbelieving. "That's all you have to say." He rises from behind the desk, unhurried, like my anger is something he can simply wait out. "I found out what you might be carrying in your blood 18 months ago. Around the same time, credible threats against wolves matching your profile started surfacing. I made a decision to have you watched from a distance. Not touched. Not approached. Watched. You had photographs of my front door, Braiden. My workplace. That isn't distance, that's a leash. Something tightens along his jaw. It's the reason you're standing here alive instead of one more name on a list of wolves who went missing and were never found. I hate that there's truth in that. I hate it more than I can say. You didn't ask me, I say, quieter now, and it costs me more to say it quietly than it would have to shout it. You didn't warn me. You just decided, on your own, that you had the right to make yourself a permanent presence in my life without me ever knowing you existed. I was trying to protect you. That's what he said too. The words are out before I can stop them, and I watch them land, watch Braiden go very still. I don't explain who he is. I don't need to. Something in my voice must tell him everything, because his expression shifts from frustration into something far more careful. I'm not him, he says. You don't know that. You don't know anything about me except what's written in that folder, and none of it is actually me. Then tell me who you are. He steps closer, and I don't retreat, even though every instinct in me says I should. Not the rogue. Not the bloodline everyone's suddenly so interested in protecting. You. Tell me, and I'll stop relying on a folder to know you instead. For one dangerous second, I almost want to. That terrifies me more than anything else that's happened since I opened that letter. You don't get to protect me by controlling me, I say instead, stepping back, putting distance between us before the pull toward him convinces me to do something stupid. Those aren't the same thing, whatever you've convinced yourself. Something in his eyes tells me that landed somewhere real, somewhere he wasn't expecting me to reach. But before he can answer, a sharp knock cuts through the tension, one of his guards stepping in without waiting for permission, which alone tells me something is wrong. My king. Perimeter breach, north fence line. Braiden's entire posture changes instantly, the frustration from a moment ago replaced by something colder, sharper. Casualties? None of ours. We caught the scout alive. The guard hesitates, glancing at me before continuing. He wasn't scouting the territory, sir. He had a photograph on him. My stomach drops before he even finishes. Of her. The room goes silent in a way that feels different from before, heavier, more dangerous. Braiden turns to look at me, and whatever softness had been building between us a moment ago is gone, replaced by something fierce and protective that makes my pulse spike for reasons I don't fully understand. They found me, I whisper, more to myself than to either of them. No, Braiden says, and there's a promise buried underneath the word, one I don't fully trust yet, but one that settles into my chest anyway. They found where you were. That's not the same as finding you unprotected. I want to believe him. I'm not sure yet if wanting to is enough. Chapter 5: The Butcher. The scout doesn't talk easily, but he talks. I stand behind a two-way mirror in a room I didn't know existed an hour ago, watching Braiden and two of his enforcers work a man who looks like he'd rather die than betray whoever sent him. Eventually, fear of Braiden wins out over fear of his employer. It usually does. He's called the Butcher, the scout says, voice cracking. Nobody knows his real name. Nobody who's met him and lived to talk about it, anyway. How long has he been hunting her? Braiden's voice is low, controlled, but I can feel the danger underneath it even through the glass. 10 years, maybe more. He doesn't hunt rogues at random. He hunts bloodlines. Specific ones. He's killed dozens looking for the right one. The scout's eyes flick toward the mirror, like some instinct tells him I'm standing on the other side of it. He thinks he finally found her. My knees nearly give out. 10 years. He's been hunting a bloodline for 10 years, and somehow, impossibly, it traces back to me. Braiden finds me afterward in a private sitting room, and I can tell by his face that he already knows I heard everything. He doesn't bother pretending otherwise. Tell me what you are, he says gently, and for the first time, it doesn't sound like an order. It sounds like a question he's actually asking, not a command he's making. I've spent 9 years never saying this out loud to anyone. My hands twist together in my lap, and I stare at them instead of him while I finally let the words out. When I was 17, I started noticing something. Bonded pairs around me, mates who'd been together for years, sometimes their bond would feel different when I was near them. Thinner. Like it was fraying at the edges. I didn't understand it. I didn't tell anyone, because I was scared of what it meant. What happened? I panicked once, badly, at a pack gathering. There was a couple standing near me, and something about my fear just reached out, and their bond nearly snapped in front of everyone. I didn't do it on purpose. I don't even fully understand how I did it at all. But everyone saw. Everyone knew what I could do after that. Braiden's expression doesn't change, doesn't recoil the way I've spent 9 years braced for. If anything, he leans closer, like he's trying to understand rather than escape. That's when he rejected you. I nod, throat too tight to answer out loud. Ava. He says my name carefully, like it might break something if he isn't gentle with it. Do you understand what that means? A wolf who can unravel a mate bond isn't a curse. It's one of the rarest kinds of power in our entire history. It's exactly what the butcher has spent a decade hunting for. Before I can respond, the door opens without warning, and one of Braiden's advisors steps inside, older, silver-haired, radiating the kind of authority that comes only with age and old grudges. My king, we need to discuss containment protocols for the girl. She has a name, Braiden says, voice edged with warning. With respect, if what the scout confirmed is true, she isn't merely a rogue anymore. She's a liability that every hostile pack in the East will be trying to claim or eliminate within the week. The advisor's eyes cut to me, cold and assessing. We should discuss restricting her movement for the safety of the pack. Something ugly twists in my chest, old and familiar, the exact shape of every time I've been treated as a problem instead of a person. My breathing goes shallow. My pulse spikes. Ava. Braiden's voice, sharper now, aimed at me instead of the advisor. Look at me. I can't. Panic has already taken hold, dragging old memories up through my chest, the pack hall, the humiliation, being talked about like I wasn't even standing in the room. I feel my control slipping, feel something reach outward from me without permission, and across the room, I watch the advisor's hand fly to his own chest like something invisible just grabbed hold of his heart. He gasps. Stumbles back. His mate, standing near the doorway, cries out, clutching her own chest in matching pain, the bond between them visibly fraying in the air like a wire pulled too tight. Ava, stop. Braiden is in front of me now, hands on my shoulders, grounding me back into my own body. Look at me. Breathe. It takes everything in me to pull the power back, to force it to release its grip on a bond that was never mine to touch. The advisor collapses into a chair, gasping, his mate rushing to his side, both of them staring at me with a fear I recognize instantly. I've seen that exact look before. 9 years ago, in a different hall, from different faces. Some things never stop being the same nightmare. Chapter 6, What She Is. Nobody moves for a long moment. The advisor's mate is still crouched beside his chair, checking him over with shaking hands, and every guard along the wall has gone rigid, watching me like I might do it again. I want to disappear. I want the floor to open up and swallow me whole, the way it should have 9 years ago. Get them checked by the healer, Braiden says to one of the guards, voice steady despite everything. Bond stress, nothing more. They'll be fine. The advisor doesn't look convinced. Neither does his mate. They're helped out of the room, casting one last look back at me before the door shuts, and I don't blame them for the fear in their eyes. I put it there. I'm sorry, I whisper, the moment we're alone. I didn't mean to. I never mean to, it just happens when I lose control, and I lost control, and Ava. Braiden's voice cuts gently through the spiral. Look at me. I do, and I brace myself for whatever comes next. Disgust. Fear. The same look I've seen on every face that's ever learned what I really am. He doesn't give me any of that. Instead, he steps closer, closing the distance between us like my power hasn't just proven exactly how dangerous I could be to everyone in this house. That was fear talking, not malice. There's a difference, and I think you know that better than anyone. Doesn't matter. It still happened. It matters more than you think. He studies me, something unreadable behind his dark eyes. Do you understand what you just did? You didn't just strain a bond. You touched it, shaped it, without laying a single hand on either of them. In all my years, I've never witnessed power like that. You should be afraid of me. I'm not. He says it simply, like it costs him nothing, like it isn't the strangest thing anyone has said to me in 9 years. I'm afraid of what happens to you if the wrong people ever get their hands on that power instead of me standing between you and them. Something in my chest cracks open at that, some old defense I've kept sealed for so long I forgot it could be moved at all. Tell me about your pack, he says quietly. Before. I want to understand what happened to you. I don't want to relive it. But some part of me is tired of carrying it alone, and for the first time in 9 years, someone is actually asking instead of assuming. My mother, I start, voice unsteady, was suspected of carrying something similar in her blood, long before I was ever born. She was never fully trusted by our pack, even though nobody could prove anything. I grew up half an outsider because of whispers I didn't understand yet. Then I got older, and things started happening around me that I couldn't explain, and the whispers turned into something worse. And your mate? My throat tightens at the word. He was the only one who never treated me like I was something to be watched. Until the night everyone saw what I could do, and he stood in front of the whole pack and rejected me instead of standing beside me. Braiden is quiet for a long moment, something working behind his expression that I can't quite read. I want to look into your old pack's records. Quietly. I think there's more to that night than you were ever told. Panic flickers through me. Why does that matter now? Because power like yours doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't disappear from records, no matter how hard someone tries to bury it. His jaw tightens. If your bloodline was documented anywhere, officially or otherwise, I need to know who else has had access to that information. It's the only way to understand how far the butcher's reach might already extend. I nod slowly, even though every instinct in me wants to refuse, wants to keep that door sealed shut the way I've kept it for 9 years. 2 days later, he finds me in the library, a single folder in his hand, his expression carefully blank in a way that immediately puts me on edge. I found the records, he says. And the Beta family that oversaw the investigation into your mother, and later into you. He hesitates, watching my face carefully as he says the next part. The family name is Hale. The floor tilts beneath me. That was Callum's family, I whisper. His father was our Beta. Braiden's expression darkens, something protective and furious moving behind his eyes. Then I think it's time we found out exactly what role his family played in what happened to you that night, and why. Chapter 7: The Truth About That Night. Braiden brings in someone who used to serve under the Hale family, an older wolf named Desmond who left that pack years ago and owes Braiden enough favors to talk freely. I sit across from him in the study, hands clenched in my lap, bracing for whatever truth is about to rearrange 9 years of grief. You were there, Braiden says. The night Ava was rejected. Desmond nods slowly, eyes flicking to me with something like guilt. I was young then, barely more than a pup myself, but I remember it. Everyone did. It isn't the kind of night a pack forgets. Tell her what you told me. Desmond exhales, rubbing a hand over his jaw like he's steadying himself for something difficult. Callum didn't reject you because of what happened, the bond nearly snapping between that couple. That was the excuse, the story the pack was given, but it wasn't the truth. My heart is pounding so loudly I almost miss what he says next. Word had already reached us, days before that gathering, that hunters were closing in on our territory, searching for a bloodline matching yours. Callum's father knew. He'd been contacted directly, warned that if the pack was found harboring what you carried, every wolf in it would be treated as a target. Desmond's voice softens. Callum begged his father to protect you quietly, to hide you, to do anything other than what they eventually decided to do. What did they decide? My voice comes out barely above a whisper. That the only way to keep the pack safe and keep you alive was to sever you from it completely, publicly, undeniably, so that if hunters ever came asking, there would be no question that you'd already been cast out. No reason to search further. No reason to punish a pack for hiding what it no longer claimed. The room tilts around me. Callum didn't want to do it, Desmond continues, quieter now. I remember him the night before, begging his father for another way. There wasn't one. His father made the decision for him, and Callum was ordered to carry it out himself, in front of the entire pack, so it would be believed. He didn't reject me because I disgusted him. My voice breaks entirely now, 9 years of certainty collapsing all at once. He did it to save me. He loved you, Desmond says simply. I don't think he ever stopped. I can't breathe. 9 years, I built an entire identity around being unwanted, around being the girl whose own mate looked at what she was and decided she wasn't worth the risk. And it was never true. It was never once true. Where is he now? I ask, some desperate part of me already hoping, already reaching for a version of this story where I get to see him again, get to hear him say it himself. Desmond's expression shifts, and I know before he says a single word. I'm sorry, he says. Callum didn't make it past that first year. Hunters came anyway, not long after you disappeared. They didn't believe the rejection was real, not fully. They wanted to make an example instead, in case anyone else in the East considered doing the same thing to protect someone like you. The sound that comes out of me isn't a word. It isn't even really a sob. It's something older than that, something that's been buried under 9 years of misplaced grief and misplaced blame, finally breaking free all at once. He died protecting a lie meant to protect me, and it didn't even work. Whatever I ran from that night followed me anyway, and it cost him everything regardless. Braiden is beside me before I fully register him moving, arms around me, not saying anything, just holding the pieces of me together while they fall apart in real time. I don't pull away. I don't have the strength left to pull away, and some quieter part of me doesn't want to. I'm sorry, Braiden murmurs against my hair. I know that isn't enough. I know nothing I say right now is enough. It isn't. Nothing could be. But for the first time in 9 years, I'm not grieving alone in a dark apartment with a locked door and no one to witness it. That has to count for something. Chapter 8 Walls Down. I don't remember falling asleep in his arms, but I wake up in a bed that isn't mine, sunlight cutting soft lines across unfamiliar sheets, and for one disoriented moment, I forget every reason I have to be afraid. Then it all comes rushing back. Callum. The truth. 9 years grieving the wrong thing entirely. Braiden isn't in the room, but there's a note on the nightstand, his handwriting sharp and deliberate. Take whatever time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Simple. No demands attached to it. No expectation that I owe him anything for it. I spend the morning in silence, sitting by the window, letting myself finally feel the full weight of what I learned. Not the sanitized version I've carried for 9 years, the version where I was simply unwanted, easy to walk away from. The real one. Callum choosing to break his own heart, and mine, because it was the only shield he had left to offer me. I cry more in that morning than I have in the entire 9 years combined. Braiden finds me there in the afternoon, and instead of pushing, instead of filling the silence with reassurances I'm not ready to hear, he simply sits down across from me and waits. I spent 9 years hating myself, I finally say. Building an entire life around the idea that I wasn't worth protecting. And it turns out someone tried to protect me so badly that it killed him. That isn't your fault. I know. My voice cracks. Knowing it and feeling it aren't the same thing. No, he agrees quietly. They rarely are. We sit together as the light shifts across the room, and for once, he doesn't try to close the distance between us, doesn't push the bond, doesn't remind me of what we are to each other. He simply stays, steady and present, exactly as promised. Why haven't you said anything, I ask eventually, about the mate bond? You could push. Most alphas would. Something flickers across his face, old and complicated. Because I've spent my whole life believing that protecting someone means holding on tight enough that nothing can take them from you. I built my entire reign around that belief. He looks at me directly. And then I watched what that exact belief did to you. Someone loved you enough to let you go because he thought it would save you, and it still cost you both everything. That's different from what you're describing. Is it? His jaw tightens. I had you watched for over a year because I thought controlling the information around you was the same as keeping you safe. I see now how much that mirrors what was done to you, dressed up in different intentions. Hearing him say it out loud, really say it, does something to the wall I've kept between us since the moment I walked through those gates. I don't want to be someone you control, Braiden. Even gently. Even with good intentions. I know. He reaches out, slow enough that I have every chance to pull away, and rests his hand over mine. I'm trying to learn the difference between protecting you and possessing you. I won't pretend I'm good at it yet. Something in my chest loosens, just slightly, just enough. That's more honest than anything Callum's father ever offered anyone. I don't want to be compared to him. I want to earn something you actually choose, not something fate decided for both of us in a moment neither of us controlled. I look at him for a long moment, really look, and for the first time since I arrived, I don't feel the immediate instinct to run. 9 years of walls, and this man has spent days quietly dismantling them, not by force, but by simply choosing, again and again, not to take what hasn't been freely given. I'm not ready to say I trust this, I admit. Any of it. Us. The bond. I'm not asking you to be ready. His thumb brushes gently over my knuckles. I'm asking you to let me stay close enough to earn it, whenever you are. Before I can answer, the door opens sharply, one of his enforcers stepping in without ceremony, face grim in a way that immediately puts both of us on alert. My king. Scouts spotted movement along the southern border an hour ago. The enforcer hesitates, glancing between us. We've confirmed the sighting. It's him. Braiden goes rigid beside me. The butcher. He's not sending scouts anymore, the enforcer says grimly. He's here himself. Chapter 9, The Bloodline. The estate moves like a body bracing for impact. Guards doubling at every entrance, enforcers pulled in from outlying territory, the low hum of fear running under every conversation even when no one says his name out loud. Braiden doesn't let me out of his sight, and for once, I don't fight him on it. Not because I've suddenly decided control and protection are the same thing after all, but because some part of me knows this isn't about control anymore. This is about survival, and there's a difference now that I can actually feel. We need answers, he says, pacing his study while I sit curled in a chair by the fire, still shaken from the news. Not fragments. Not half-remembered stories from your old pack. If we're going to survive whatever he's planning, I need to understand exactly what you are. I don't fully understand it myself. Then we find someone who does. He brings in a pack historian, ancient in the way only the oldest wolves are, a woman named Odessa whose eyes seem to hold centuries behind them. She studies me for a long moment before she ever speaks, like she's reading something written beneath my skin. Your first wolf line, she says finally, and the words land in the room like a stone dropped into still water. That's not possible, Braiden says. That bloodline died out generations ago. It's a myth told to pups. Myths persist because they're rooted in something true, my king. Odessa's gaze doesn't leave me. The first wolf line was marked directly by the moon goddess before territories ever existed, before packs split and claimed borders of their own. They carried a power no other bloodline was ever given. The ability not just to form bonds, but to unmake them. To reshape them entirely. My hands are shaking in my lap. Why would that make me the most hunted woman in the wolf world? Because a wolf who can sever any bond, or force one into existence, is the single greatest threat to every claim of power that has ever existed in our world. Odessa's voice is grave. An alpha's authority is often built on bonds, alliances, marriages, blood ties. Someone who could unmake those bonds at will could unmake kingdoms. Someone who could force new bonds could crown whoever they chose, legitimate or not. The room falls silent. That's what he wants, I whisper. Not to kill me. To control me. To use what I am. Or to make certain no one else ever can, Odessa says quietly. Some hunt power to wield it. Others hunt it because they're terrified of what happens if they don't destroy it first. Braiden crosses the room and kneels in front of my chair, taking both my hands in his, forcing me to look at him instead of the fear closing in around me. Listen to me. Whatever he wants from you, whatever anyone has ever wanted from you, none of it matters more than this. I am not interested in your power, Ava. I never was. Everyone says that. I'm not everyone. His grip tightens gently. I could have crowned any wolf my queen the moment the bond hit. I could have used the recognition to secure my throne, the way every alpha before me has done with a true mate. I haven't announced anything to my court. I haven't claimed you publicly. I've spent every day since you arrived trying to earn something real instead of taking what fate handed me. His eyes hold mine, fierce and certain. I don't want the last of the first wolf line. I want you. Whatever that costs me. Something in me finally, fully believes him. Before I can respond, before I can let myself feel the full weight of what just shifted between us, the alarm bells begin to ring through the entire estate, sharp and relentless, the sound of every worst fear arriving all at once. Braiden is on his feet instantly, pulling me up with him. That's the outer wall. A guard bursts through the door, breathless, blood already on his sleeve. My king, they're inside the perimeter. He's inside the perimeter. How? Braiden demands, voice like a blade. Our defenses have held against worse than one man. The guard's face goes pale, his eyes flicking toward the hallway behind him like he's afraid of being overheard. Because he had help, sir. Someone inside opened the north gate for him. Braiden's entire body goes rigid beside me. Chapter 10 Mine to Protect. The estate is chaos, alarms still ringing, guards moving in coordinated lines toward the north wall, and somewhere out there, a man who has hunted my bloodline for a decade is finally standing on the same ground as me. I'm done being the reason people around me get hurt while I hide. Stay behind the enforcers, Braiden orders, already moving toward the door, already shifting into the version of himself built entirely for war. No. He turns, disbelief flashing across his face. Ava, this isn't the time to argue with me. I'm not arguing. I'm telling you. I meet his eyes, steady despite the fear coursing through me. I've spent 9 years running from what I am. I'm not doing that anymore. Not tonight. Whatever I can do, I'm using it. With you, not hidden behind you. Something shifts in his expression, respect closing over the fear I know he's fighting to control. He doesn't argue further. He simply nods, once, and takes my hand as we move together toward the fight neither of us can avoid. The north wall is worse than I imagined. Bodies of guards litter the grounds, some down but breathing, some not moving at all. And standing in the center of it, calm in a way that feels far more dangerous than rage would, is a man I've never seen before but recognize instantly anyway. The Butcher. He's smaller than the stories made him sound, unremarkable almost, except for the eyes, flat and empty in a way that tells me he stopped feeling anything a long time ago. There you are, he says, like we're old acquaintances instead of strangers. Do you have any idea how long I've been looking for you? Long enough to kill an innocent man who never even carried what you're hunting, I say, voice shaking with fury instead of fear now. Something almost like amusement crosses his face. Collateral. It happens. Braiden moves first, a blur of black fur and fury, and the fight that follows is brutal and fast, wolves colliding with wolves across the grounds while I stand frozen, watching the man I've come to trust risk everything against someone who has survived a decade of hunts exactly like this one. Then I see it. A shift in the shadows near the wall, someone moving to strike Braiden from behind while he's locked in combat, someone wearing pack colors, someone who should be an ally. The traitor. I don't think. I reach out with everything I am, every ounce of power I've spent 9 years suppressing, and I grab hold of the only thing I know how to touch. Not a bond between mates this time, but something else, the traitor's own loyalty, twisted and forced and unnatural, a debt owed to the Butcher that I can feel humming under his skin like a leash. I rip it apart. The traitor staggers, disoriented, his weapon dropping from suddenly nerveless fingers, and Braiden's enforcers are on him in seconds, dragging him back before he can do any damage at all. The Butcher's head snaps toward me, and for the first time, something like real fear flickers across that empty expression. Impossible, he breathes. You spent 10 years hunting me for exactly this, I say, stepping forward despite every instinct screaming to run. You should have been more careful about what you were wishing for. I don't fully understand what I do next, only that it comes from somewhere ancient, somewhere that's been waiting 9 years for permission to exist fully. I reach for whatever unnatural bonds hold the Butcher's forces loyal to him, and I unmake them, one by one, watching wolves who came here to kill for him suddenly stagger, freed from whatever twisted control kept them fighting for a cause that was never their own. Alone, exposed, his army scattered, the Butcher finally does the one thing I never expected. He runs. Braiden doesn't chase him, choosing instead to turn back toward me, blood and dirt streaked across him, eyes wide with something between awe and terror at what he just witnessed. "You're safe," he says, pulling me against him the moment he reaches me. "You're safe." "I did that," I whisper, still shaking, still processing the power that just moved through me like it had always belonged there. "I actually did that." "You did." He pulls back just enough to look at me, hands framing my face gently. "You are not something to be hidden or controlled, Ava. You never were. You are the most powerful thing I have ever stood beside, and I am not interested in a version of you that isn't fully, unapologetically herself. Something in me, some final wall I've been guarding since I was 18 years old, finally comes all the way down. I choose this," I say, voice steady for the first time since I opened that letter. "Not because fate decided it for us. Because I'm choosing you, Braiden. All of it. The bond, the crown, whatever comes next." His answering smile is the first one I've seen from him that reaches all the way to his eyes. Later, once the wounded are tended and the grounds finally fall quiet, Odessa finds us both, expression grim despite the victory. "The butcher escaped," she says. "But that isn't the news you need to hear tonight." "What is?" Braiden asks. Word is already spreading through rival territories about what happened here. About what she is. Odessa's eyes settle on me, heavy with warning. "The butcher was never the only power in this world hunting the first wolf line, my king. He was simply the first to find her. Somewhere out there, beyond these walls, something far larger than one hunter has just learned my name.